to our first book, and it's the latest from the ever-unpredictable Rupert Thomson, who introduces us to a most peculiar artist as he negotiates sex, power and intrigue in late Renaissance Florence, in secrecy.
Never before had it struck me so forcibly that I only created perfect forms in order that I might damage them. I would hack and gouge at the unblemished surfaces, and sometimes I would hit my instruments over a flame, then watch as their glowing tips sank onto waxy flesh. I was like a perverse barber surgeon operating on the bodies of the healthy to make them sick. Was it true what they said of me, that I was a pariah?
Well, there's Zamo, the wax sculptor, who is called to the Grand Duke of Tuscany's court. And what a hellhole it is, Jason.
I was surprised by the darkness of this version of Florence. And Zumo's art is extraordinary, I think, this sort of wax work that he makes. And he concentrates entirely on the evil aspects that he sees and the mysteries which are incredibly bleak, I think.
Yes.
It's a vision of Florence that surprised me, actually.
So what, you thought it was, you know, we're going to have more domes and...
Yeah, I really, it reminded me more of Dickens's London, actually, than images of Florence that of the Renaissance or whatever, that I held in my mind.
It's a wicked place, obsessed with sex and punishment. What did you think?
Look, I enjoyed the historical aspects of it. I thought the book occasionally got bogged down in detail over story, and the story itself was a little moist for my liking.
Ooh.
A little damp, little dewy.
As in, what, too icky?
Well, it's just a bit moist and windswept, and I found it a bit, yes.
But you don't like serial killer stuff anyway, do you? I mean, that kind of thing.
I don't mind, given the right mood. No, I found that... I thought the love story lacked something at times, but the balance between the historical detail and the narrative, I thought, was sometimes quite clunky.
Junot, what did you think?
I mean, I don't know. I thought the book was... It's kind of extraordinary when you feel a writer kind of hitting on all cylinders. Like, I felt that this was a writer in the process of this book who was having an enormous amount of fun. And, you know, it's an extremely gothic book where this guy's melting in. It's a historical with a police procedural and then the kind of standard gothic stuff that's going on, which we don't usually see from male writers. And so I found it to be, for any of its defects, I thought it was kind of it's kind of a nutty, crazy-ass hoot, you know?
Sarah?
I think it's a rather good book, actually. I think it's a book about flesh, in all senses of the word.
Is that the sort of moist thing?
Well, I don't know quite...
Let's all not say moist.
I really don't know what level of juice you're objecting to here, so maybe I shouldn't go there. But it's about flesh in terms of the fact that this guy creates wax that looks like flesh. Yes. And it's about flesh insofar as we're in a Florence post the Counter-Reformation, where everybody's extremely pious about flesh. In fact, they're so obsessively pious about flesh, you know they really want flesh,
yes,
but shouldn't want flesh. The trick of writing really good historical fiction is that you feel you're in a foreign country, that you really viscerally feel like the past is somewhere different, that it's the sordidness in the mindset as much as the dirt in the ground. And I think what he captures very well is this moment in late Catholicism where they're absolutely terrified of sin and flesh and obsessed with it at the same time.
We haven't actually explained the story, which is that the Duke commissions this beautiful woman, this Eve, which can only be made or cast, Zumbo says, but from a corpse. And so it is the corpse is found, and the corpse, in the true style of that time, historical romance, has a stamp on its neck which identifies and that is the murder mystery.
There's a fantastic race against time scene as well, where she's starting to decompose, and he's trying to work around her, which is, I think, the most gripping part of the book, that you can hear the...
Don't let her go off!
Yeah, you can smell her.
But which is the police procedural bit, isn't it?
And also, we all know, it's also pretty neat metaphor for what it means to be an artist. You know, I mean, there's this sense that, like, got to get stuff in before the stuff no longer has valence. And I think that it was a kind of a neat, I mean, think about it, that couldn't have been a stranger artist to encounter, a person who casts these sort of wax simulacra, but in many ways I felt a lot of kinship to the sort of, well, I mean,
how creepy.
But I think what we do, think about it, I mean, most artists have difficult lives not for no reason. Yeah. I mean, to delve very deeply into souls, sometimes I think can be risky for even the best and the strongest of us.
And you've got to get those verbs on paper before they go off.
Yeah. So, Junot, you are the Gaetano Zumbo of modern American fiction.
The exact opposite. I don't have the guts this guy does. This guy's hardcore.
And that's why I'd agree with you. With all this going on, really, the love story doesn't have a chance, does it?
No, but I can see why it's necessary.
Oh, it's completely
and yet
essential,
it's very cumbersome, I think. I mean, it's...
Well, you've got to have some purity amid all of this corruption, haven't you? There's got, in order to bring the corruption out, bring the decay out.
Maybe that's where I found the Dewiness, though, that every time they got together, I thought, oh, God, you know, it's those two were going to be gazing moonily at each other for a few pages, and then the real story began again.
I don't think he writes women well in this book, to be honest.
No.
I think that there's also the fact that the women characters are, you know, undercooked. Whether it's the mom opening the sort of framework character, and, you know, sometimes it happens. You know, especially for a male writer, I think that if you don't adjust for how poorly men tend to write women, the default setting is these kind of weak, sort of ghostly figures. I mean, he does better describing dead women than he does live women. And that's not going to work. That's just not going to work, yo.
He's right. In fact, the women aren't strong. They aren't strong. That's not his forte. What he is brilliant at is, like I said, almost like pastiching. But the problem with that is that sometimes I think he just goes over the top. So I have to say, towards the end of the book, when the evil monk is riding with his black cape, you know, flying behind him, with the instruments of torture clunking in the front and the brazier on top of his piebald horse.
That was too much?
I thought that.
You're funny, man. That broke the spell. Wow.
Well, the 4-foot sword, too. I hadn't mentioned that.
Man, I don't know.
You thought not too much?
I feel like if you're going to be in for the dead body wax making, you're going to be in.
You've got to take the brazier.
Yeah, man. Like, come on now.
I imagined, having read your work, that nothing could be further from late Renaissance Italy, and I thought you'd hate this book. I mean, I didn't choose it for that reason, but I thought you would.
I'm sure we all feel this way. You know, once you've done the labor of writing a book, I have to tell you, the heavy lifting that this author did, I found commendable, and the fact that he held me throughout. And again, I guess I'm a reader who is just pardons books' defects because no book is perfect. And the books we tend to love, it's not because the book is perfect, it's because we're generous towards its defects. Yeah. And so this book fell in for me, my historical training, my sort of a love of the Gothic, and the fact that, you know, even though the gals were weak as hell, I found the voice very compelling. This kind of desperate, twisted dude. You know, I felt like he understood him well.
And you're right. In fact, while the women aren't so great in Thomson's book, he's awfully good at desperate, twisted dudes. He does that. He does that really well.
It's a measure of the book's success, really, that clearly Thomson has gone out. I don't know what came first, but it seems that he's seen this art or heard about this artist, seen the physical manifestation of it, and then created a very successful world around it. It doesn't seem self-indulgent. It doesn't seem like he's just seen a piece of art and then tried to pull together a story. It works. It works as a piece, and it works that it's been inspired by something small, and I think that's very commendable.
And not 900 pages.
Yes. That's a
Can
big
we
plus,
agree,
isn't it?
like, it's not bad in the day of, like, page inflation that we have a book that's under 900 pages?
Absolutely.
I was like,
And
yay.
I'd just like to say that
It looks so pretty.
I was so interested in it that I was reading it in the bar.
Yes, you can tell.
And I always think that's a good sign.
The bath test.
Wet,
Bottoms up,
wet.
darling.
That's
And you're a thumbs up too, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, half a thumb, anyway.
He's always half a thumb.
And the strange... They quarrel all the time,
You
Junot,
too,
all the
man.
time.
I'm like, y'all related?